Bills Mafia, what's going on? Welcome into I guess I don't want to sound like Barstool guy and have an emergency pod, but I feel like it's sort of an emergency pod. It's a Wednesday evening edition of First and Five. I'm your host, Dave Myers, and I'm joined by a very near and dear friend of mine, someone I've known for a long time in the content creating space, Joe Miller of the Overreaction Podcast. Joe, how are we doing on this Wednesday night? I guess it's a hump day.
We used to do a show called Hump Day.
No way.
It is Hump Day. It is Wednesday, and yeah, it's been a crazy off season, and the season's still going. So here we are. Yeah, but no, it's good to talk to you. It's good to be here. I was just retweeting it. So yeah, so
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna. We don't have a ton of time. We just kind of want to go through this thing, and I want to touch on a few things that I think were some hot topic points from this press conference. Everybody's got their say on, what did Pegula look like? What did Beane look like? Egg on their face, talking about 𝐾𝐨𝐿, talking about this and that. I just want to come on here and I want to get Joe's perspective, and I'll give my perspective on a few things that I don't know how I feel. Joe, honestly, I don't know how I feel about this press conference. I gave it some time. I went back, and obviously if you go on Twitter, there's clips all over the place, people manipulating the clips, people doing whatever they want, making memes out of the clips. What was your initial reaction? Take me back to when, after you first saw the press conference or as you were watching it, what was your first reaction to how Pegula presented himself, how Beane presented himself? Did the media do a good job by asking the right questions? Like, what was your overall thoughts on this press conference?
So I would probably start with saying that nothing in that press conference changed my opinion of any of what I think went down at One Bills Drive. Maybe some timelines. If anything, it potentially made me feel, I don't know, worse about the situation. You've got, Pegula, who doesn't want to be interviewed or doesn't necessarily want to be in the public spotlight. Sure, great. Was very excited to talk, which, as the owner, I want to hear from the owner. Yeah. He cut off Brandon Beane a lot, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Again, he's Mr. Pegula. If he wants to cut somebody off, he can. But a lot of what he cut him off with, to include having to backtrack on the comment about 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Coleman and whose selection he was, when Brandon Beane backtracked in the presser and said, I still have hope for him. He's on the roster. Right. And he was going to say he was my pick before Terry cut. So the Terry part was interesting. I liked the way it started, and then it just kind of went downhill from there. And then there was some more backtracking. I've got, like, Mike Catalana tweeted today, because Terry said the reason for the change, or why, if this is this a championship roster? If it is a championship roster, why didn't we make it to the championship? And it was because of a bad call. And it's like, but you fired your head coach because of right. But Mike Catalana says, if they called it a catch, or Dane and Savage didn't have to play, or Josh only had 2 turnovers, Sean would still be the coach, and no matter what, the roster would be great. I mean, there was a lot of that type of stuff as far as for Terry. For Beane, spare me the I'm a really nice guy and passionate routine. When he went in on Jeremy and Joe, he did a media tour after that, and and was like trying to dunk on him again with
took a victory lap.
Yeah, ha. Look what I did to the dudes in Buffalo, and like it became a national joke.
Yeah,
and they were right. And now for him to be like, oh, maybe I was just a little too passionate about that, and it's like, no, you weren't. You were being a prick, is what you were doing.
Yeah,
and then like there's just there's more. There's a lot there. It doesn't help that, as much as I'm not sourced like a lot of other people, I do know people. We all know people inside the building. If you live in Buffalo, somebody that works over there is around there. So I've got inside information too that doesn't completely jive with everything, but it is what it is. I mean, it's I mean, Jets fans think we're a dumpster fire. How does that make you feel, Dave?
Not good. Yeah, I've seen all the, hey, we're not the worst football team that plays in New York memes all over Twitter today. So let's kind of start. We don't need to go in any specific order, but let's start with the comments that Pegula let off. He did say some nice things about Sean.
Yeah.
I think there was somewhat of frustration from the fan base that there hadn't been put anything out. The letter that Sean McDermott put out was not even released by the Bills. They finally put a graphic out saying, thank you, Sean. Then they released that video was great. I got to admit that video was nice. They took time to do that. It was about 30 hours late, but
no, the picture was 30 hours late. The video was another 20 something hours later. It was the next day. Right. So,
yeah. So let me ask you this, because I think that in your professional life, outside of content creating, I've had a professional career where I've worked in corporate America. Do you think that when Terry Pegula said that this decision was made after I saw the looks on the faces of those guys in the locker room, do you believe that? Or do you think that this is something that, because I'll preface that by saying, well, what was the look on the guys' faces in the locker room after the AFC Championship game? I'm pretty sure some of those guys probably were pretty distraught about how that game ended. So if you were going to make a change, were you not contemplating it then? What changed now? Was it just another year? So to me, if that was his reason, that's his reason. He's the owner. He can't go back on it now. What's done is done. But do you think that this is something that was in the works, and maybe at the beginning of the season there were conversations that were had, like, this is the expectation. If we don't get there, we're going to have to move on. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it just seemed like he could have just said that, like, we needed change, and just left it at that. He didn't have to say, to me, he didn't have to say, well, I walked in the locker room and I saw Josh and he ignored me, and I saw this. Me. Yeah, he didn't even acknowledge me.
Must be Sean's fault.
Yeah, he didn't acknowledge me. So at that point, I knew that this was it. Like, talk me through that. Like, how do you feel? Like, is this something you think was kind of building, or is this something that it's just a knee-jerk reaction? I mean, it's finalized either way, but like, what's your thoughts on his whole comments about how this decision came about, I guess?
I mean, it's not unreported. It's not, what's the word? It's not a surprise. Everybody knows that there has been a struggle, dissension between Brandon Beane's camp and McDermott's camp, at least this season, if not longer. The reality is, I mean, Dave, you can't go. I mean, there's points in this that completely make sense. And the fight that I've tried to make on Twitter is because all of a sudden there's this group of people that are like, I can't believe you guys are so mad that Sean McDermott got fired. It's like, nobody's mad that Sean McDermott got fired. Nobody's surprised. We're surprised that Brandon Beane got promoted. Like, that's
right. 100%.
Like that's the surprise. As far as like the timelines and stuff like that, they didn't have a plan. I was in a Twitter argument with somebody today that's like, oh, they've got a list of coaches in case they ever want. It was like, if you've got a list of coaches, you should have fired the guy already. Like, like you should have fired him a long time ago. If you don't walk around. Owners don't have a list of coaches they'd rather have just in case someday comes and they want to get rid of that guy.
Right.
So this was, you can tell this was a knee jerk. I feel you talked about corporate, just like careers and stuff like that. I am convinced that Terry wants to back out, or wanted to back out of the football kind of operations piece. I can't verify this part. This is the only part of the thing leadership wise that makes sense in my brain. And I've been saying it since the news came down. I feel like he wanted to put Brandon, Brandon's going to be the president of football operations. And I know that there was a closed door meeting on Sunday, Josh, Brandon, coach, and Pegula. I know for a fact that happened, and it was an abnormal. It wasn't an exit interview, season's over type meeting. It was a meeting between them. I was told it was a serious meeting. I feel like Pegula was like, I want to make Brandon president of football operations, and Sean, you're going to report to Brandon. And Brandon was like, no way, like, not going to happen. And then everything just went south from there. Like that's what I feel like actually happened. Clearly that part I can't corroborate with anybody. There's nobody that's like, oh yeah, that's exactly like that. To me is my speculation. I don't believe for a second they were in that meeting and made a decision one way or another, because I know that they left that meeting and no decision had been made yet. Like nobody, like McDermott didn't find out until Monday morning when everybody else found out.
Right.
I believe Pegula when he says I didn't tell Josh, because I also know some things just about Josh being unhappy right now. Josh is not happy with the situation as far as that goes. So I don't think that this was a plan. I feel like it was up, and I feel like it was evolving, and I feel like it was coming. And I feel like there were conversations being potentially had about what do we do if, or what should we do kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think that Terry had any intention of necessarily. I don't think he left Saturday being like, I got to let my head coach go, because there's other things that have happened since then before the firing that don't speak to that. You would tell him Saturday night or Sunday morning first thing, we're done here.
Right. Which makes Sean McDermott's the last press conference he's ever had makes it a little bit more telling when he's fighting for Buffalo and all that stuff. Like, it makes it, and I'm not going to be a tinfoil hat guy and say that he was told already before that press conference that you're done. You're out.
I think he knew. You're inferring it. I mean, I have a feeling that there was definite. We need to make the Super Bowl, and we do. Like, it's been too 100%. Long. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're totally fine. I feel like that was, and we've seen Sean McDermott do some, standing on this hill of I represent Buffalo stuff before, but that was very. If you go back and watch it now, it's eerie. It's eerie to see him just be so passionate about all of that. So, you talked about how you thought that this might have been coming. And what I thought was funny, I shouldn't say funny because I kind of feel bad for Keon Coleman, but I don't understand. Like, to me, this press conference should have went this way. Terry Pegula came out, and yes, we want the media to be accessible to him because we want to see the guy that is in charge of the entire operation. But I feel like he should have just came out, made a statement, maybe taken a question or two, and then just kind of turned the whole press conference over to Brandon Beane, because it looked like
it would have had to have been the right statement.
Exactly, 100%. And I feel like you mentioned him just cutting off Brandon Beane all the time. Like, I felt like he was kind of chopping Beane's knees off at certain times. I mean, there's even a viral clip that's out there of him cutting off Beane and Beane just going, huh?
That was the moment, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So it's like, I do want to talk about the Keon Coleman thing. I know there's been some stuff that's been backtracked about whose pick it was, and then all the videos and receipts that have come out about.
Well, hang on. To your point, I want to don't forget what you're going to say, Dave.
You're good.
To your point about knowing, it's been reported as well that Josh would be at Sean's house once a week for dinner and would hang out with his family and his kids. I would say, and I talked to Mike Catalana on our On the Beat program last night, Tuesday night. I feel like those two were confiding in each other. And I absolutely would guess that Sean was like, hey man, if we don't get over the hump, I mean, I don't know where this goes for us. Yeah. And you get the sensation that Josh, who was inconsolable after that football game, that it wasn't about 4 turnovers, one of which 100%. Wasn't his fault. And one of the other ones was like, oh, I threw a football backwards at the end of halftime for no reason and still brought my team back. Like, there's an aspect of what we saw, like, the way we saw Josh, because normally he's dejected after a loss where he's done some things wrong, but he was not. I feel like he knew, and Sean was fighting to his last breath. Yeah. Like, we should have won this game, but the NFL didn't do what the NFL was like, almost like this wasn't my fault. So I have a feeling, yes, there was some expectation that, win or else type stuff, but I don't think they had a plan.
Yeah. And I'll get back to Ken in a minute. And it's not, I don't think, Joe, and I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think that I'm having an issue with them moving on from McDermott. I think that in years past, we've tried. There's been the fire McDermott with the pitchforks. There's been this season, it was fire Beane. I feel like the way everything went down was just kind of where I have the issue. Is the biggest issue I have.
Even today, Dave, Pegula did not say, like, all he had to say was thank you, Sean, for. I mean, I guess he did, but he
sort of did.
Right. I mean, and then the press release that they put out, they misspelled, and now even 20, like Dell with 26 shirts has Admiral McDermott t-shirt out. So even Dell has turned on the franchise. It's like, what is happening?
But back to Keon, I didn't need to know who wanted to draft Keon. I didn't need that from the owner. This is a player that we've all talked about all season long. We know about the issues he's had with making it to meetings and being benched and stuff like that. This guy is an active member of your roster. And you're bringing him up in an end of season, we fired our head coach press conference. The thing to me, I see all these people saying, well, Keon's played his last snap in Buffalo. Has he? because I feel like you just took his stock and just threw it in the toilet. If you planned on not having him on your roster,
right?
Like you just told everybody that he wasn't supposed to be on the roster. So I don't know how you feel about that. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it.
It's unfortunate for the man, the kid, right?
The person, the human element.
Yeah,
right?
but at the end of the day, the writing's on the wall. I mean,
Right.
there were scrap heap guys playing in front of him. Curtis Samuel as well, who's a $9 million player, right? I mean, he's at a $9 million salary. We've got scrap heap guys, and I was arguing with somebody about this on Twitter as well. It's like it was Kevin Massari. At the end of the day, like everybody was gone. There was nobody left, and it's like, well, I guess we're gonna play Keon, right? And the funny thing is he had a pretty important touchdown in that football game.
He had a big game. He had a big catch against Jacksonville too.
I don't know that he's on this roster regardless next year. I mean, to me, the Buffalo Bills have one quality NFL starter or one quality NFL wide receiver on this roster going into 2026. That's 𝐃𝐨𝐽, and he's a wide receiver 3. Like everybody else is either injured or they're not NFL quality wide receivers, or they're scrap heap guys that shouldn't be. Mecole Hardman, we have a futures contract with Mecole Hardman. That was the announcement. Like, okay, well, if you say so. Like, did we cut him and bring him back and then scrap heap and then had to play him because everybody else? I don't know, dude.
How do you
go ahead?
No. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as far as Keon goes, it's unfortunate for him. Yes, his stock, the trouble is his stock is now in the crapper, to your point, which doesn't put us in a position of being able to trade him. Not that you would get much for him, a 6 or a 7, which Brandon does pretty good with 6s, right? 5s and 6s and stuff like that. But now it's cut or bust. I mean, you're cutting him at this point.
Yeah. So you brought up the wide receiver topic, and that was brought up, and he kind of danced around it a little bit. I think it was brought up a couple different times. The first time he kind of walked back a little bit what he said to GR last year in the spring. And then he brought it up later on, like, hey, maybe I didn't do a good enough job. Terry Pegula made it a point to say this, and I mentioned this to you before we went live when we were kind of chatting it up backstage, that he made it a point to say that we had practice squad guys playing in meaningful games, and that's due to roster construction, proper roster construction, management doing the right thing. Isn't that saying your coach is really good because he's getting these last minute additions, practice squad guys, Darnell Savage, whoever these guys are, to play at a level to compete and to damn near almost win games with these guys? What's your thoughts on that comment about the roster?
I mean, Darnell Savage is playing because you put a claim in on Darius Slay and lost Jamarcus Ingram. And if Jamarcus Ingram's playing, then Dane Jackson isn't on the field, and probably Jamarcus Ingram stops that pass, and like maybe we win that football game. I mean, the whole thing is a chicken or the egg conversation that literally goes back to Coach McDermott coached his ass off this year with a subpar roster, even though they feel that it's a great roster. But it was a patchwork roster completely because of salary cap problems and bad free agent signings and bad free agent, like second contracts and guys getting hurt all over the place. But he still deserved to be fired. At the end of the day, you can't go eight playoffs in a row or whatever it was and not go to the Super Bowl. You can't. You can't. But at the same time, Brandon Beane should be gone too. I mean, that's the rub for me. Like there's no saving anybody in this. It's not a situation of now we feel better because it all makes sense and we saved this person. It's always going to be, why did that guy get let go and that guy over there didn't get let go, and that guy probably did a worse job than that guy, and that guy's an arrogant prick, whereas that guy is like super humble and like is kind of one of us. But not that Brandon isn't. Brandon loves Buffalo too, I'm sure. But the GM part, somebody asked the question, I don't remember who it was, Brandon, you're the president of football operations, are you going to hire a GM? I'm the GM. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
sorry.
So like I made a Twitter joke, and I don't think most people even got it. Like somebody asked that question, like, is he going to hire a GM? And I used the horrible bosses gif. And I don't know if you remember that Jason Bateman's boss, Kevin Spacey. Have you seen that movie, Horrible Bosses?
It's been a long time.
So like Jason Bateman is wanting to effectively get a promotion and become the vice president of something or whatever. And then finally Kevin Spacey, who is the horrible boss, wants to is going to give the promotion. He's like, I've decided I'm going to take the role. And I'm going to bust out the wall between the two offices and make one huge presidential office. And it's like, that's probably what I made a joke about horrible boss and nobody got it. And here we are. That's kind of what's actually happening.
So that's amazing. He brought up again, and this is kind of the last thing I want to talk about with the roster. He brought up again the fact that he's kind of handcuffed with making this roster the way that they think it can be to be successful because of the Josh Allen contract. What's your thoughts on the fact that he's used this now 2 off seasons in a row? There's multiple teams around the NFL that have the quarterback in place that they're paying, that have also spent money on positions that we as a fan base feel like they need to upgrade. They need studs on the defensive side, and they definitely need a number 1 wide receiver. What's your thoughts on him just pulling this back out again and saying, you know what, I'm going to do what I can, but my hands are tied? Like, what's your thoughts?
It's a little bit, bro. It's horse crap. The reality is to your point. Like, I don't even know how many teams have a $55 million quarterback. There's a lot of teams that shouldn't have a $55 million quarterback that have a $55 million quarterback. And some of those teams actually have cap space. The problem is we had dead cap space because he re-signed Stephon Diggs, who still had 2 years left on his contract. And then we ended up trading him. So we had a huge dead cap number from him. Yep. We had dead cap money from Von Miller because he gave him a ridiculous contract that he never should have given him. I get going all in, but not to that price. I mean, So to me, it was his own doing. The one part about the roster construction stuff that I thought was great and gave, in my opinion, insight and confirmation to people that know, and then insight to people that don't necessarily pay attention, is when they talked about how they want to change. So like, we went from spread offense early with Dable, and then we decided to go to 13 personnel. So we need more tight ends and a bigger offensive line. So like, we try to draft and try to prep depending on what the coaches want. I thought that was great insight. Yeah. I mean, yes, that's exactly what should happen. You want to have a plan of, this is how I want to run my offense. What I didn't like was we're what, $7 million over the cap right now. We don't have much dead cap money. A lot of guys haven't been cut yet. And there's some guys that have to be restructured still to give us space. And then obviously we don't know what the cap is going to be. But what I didn't like was when he was like, we don't know who the next defensive coordinator is going to be. He might want to move to a 3-4. My God, don't do that. This defense is not ready. Do you remember what happened when Rex Ryan came in? Rex Ryan
ruined this defense.
But it's like, we do not have the player. We don't have a true nose. There's no true nose on this team. Like,
I said that, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I said that as soon as when the dust was settling, when we found out McDermott was fired, I said, Beane is going to have to overhaul this defense, because how many coaches are going to have the exact same philosophy that Sean McDermott has? So is Christian Benford, is he really good, or is he a McDermott system guy?
Yep.
Is Cole Bishop really good, or is McDermott the DB whisperer? Put him. Terrell Bernard, does this new defensive coordinator or head coach want an undersized linebacker that's got a huge amount of money?
They're all undersized, Dave.
And that's what, does this new coach or defensive coordinator want to have a rotation on the defensive line?
God, I hope not. That's
what I'm saying.
Mistakes. So, but he also said about the offense, and we don't know the new offense that comes in.
Right.
Right now we're running a lot of gap stuff. Maybe they want to go to a zone scheme or this, that, and I'm like, no. This, like, James Cook is losing his mind in this offense from a run game standpoint. What are you talking about? Like, you're gonna let some guy, you're gonna hire a guy that's like, I don't want to run this offense anymore. Get James Cook out of here. Like,
I mean, it's gonna be tough. I said the other night, I was live kind of doing a show the night it happened, and I said I'm a little concerned, but I'm also very intrigued to see maybe that the guys that are on the roster, especially on the defensive side, maybe there's something there that maybe McDermott was holding some of these guys back. We don't know. McDermott was a hell of a defensive coach, but maybe there's something to these guys that is being held back.
Well, Poona Ford. I mean, there's guys out there. Tim
Yeah.
Settle. Like, there's guys that we brought in that couldn't crack
Von
the
Miller.
roster.
Von Miller had 9 sacks this year.
Right.
And they used him. I understand. I get it, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what direction they go in. I hope that they go offensively.
You're arguing why Sean should have been fired, and you're right. The defensive line rotation and pouring $60 million a year into the defensive line or more is enough reason.
Yeah,
after 9 years,
and enough reason. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been fired.
Correct.
I think I'm more upset about how that man as a human was handled.
100%.
I feel like there should have been some form of, I don't want to sound corny and cliche, but for what he gave to this franchise for 9 years, I feel like this should have been handled differently.
Well, Brandon Beane resurrected the franchise. Sean didn't do that, so I don't know if you caught that today or not. But
oh God, Joe. I mean, let's wrap this all up in a bow, because I know you.
We got a couple minutes. We if you've got more you want to talk about as far as that goes. But
what? So your Bills fandom. Put your Bills fandom hat on for how many ever decades that is for you. What is your feeling going into this coaching search? What's your feeling going into this offseason? We've been very fortunate for the last 9 years to know that we were going to be a competitive football team. I'm not saying we're not going to be, but I feel like we just watched the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals have been doing it for a couple of years now. They had a down year, and they had their guys there. I mean, besides Burrow was out for a bit, but they had their guys there. And it wasn't because of a head coaching change, but they had a down year just because things weren't working.
Right.
Do you feel like that is something? Because everybody on social media will say, well, we have Josh. Well, we have Josh. And I get that. We have Josh, one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the universe. But at some point, there's going to be like, we need other things. We need other players. We need other things to work. So what's your thoughts going into the offseason now that that's changed in the last few days, not just with the loss, another loss in the playoffs, but without a head coach, because we haven't had to do this in almost 10 years. What's your thoughts?
I can talk myself into good things, like, which is what you said all the social media bros are doing. Like, yes, like I can point to specific situations where a new coach comes in to an elite quarterback and they go to the Super Bowl and win, right? I mean, I can talk myself into that, and it's not, outside the realm of possibility. Like, we can talk. I mean, Sean McVay did it with Matthew Stafford. Well, Matthew Stafford actually came to them. Sorry, I got that one backwards. But even with cap trouble and like roster trouble, we've seen Sean McVay like dip down and come back up. So I feel like from a hopium standpoint, I feel like I can talk myself into all that stuff. The problem is, from a fan, is when you look at what's available. And then you cross-reference what's available with how upset is Josh Allen, and what are you going to have to do to potentially stop the erosion of, this building is my favorite place in the world. The only place I want to be is in this building. And he didn't show up the locker cleanout day. And then I know stuff. Anyway, how do you get him back as far as that goes? Well, you hire Brian Daboll? Right. I mean, and then it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, I didn't think Brian Daboll did a terrible job with the Giants. I mean, there were some gaffes. He was a new head coach. I felt like he had his quarterback, and like I felt like he was getting the most out of Jackson Dart. And I was like, why would you fire him now? Like, he's actually making Jackson Dart kind of sing. This looks kind of good. Let's tell him to find a new defensive coordinator or whatever he's got to do to get help in some areas, right? But hire an assistant head coach that's got a lot of tenure that can help him along the way. So, but the problem is like, when you look at I don't remember who it was. I don't know if it was Joe Brady or somebody like that, which, by the way, Joe Brady's another one. It's like, Josh has not been happy in this offense all season. I mean, I mean, how many times have you heard him say, I'm just running the plays that are called? It's like, wow.
He did that under Ken Dorsey too. He came up
right before Ken Dorsey was fired. I'm just running the plays that are called. It's yikes. Not great. But at the end of the day, I tweeted about there was somebody that was like, it might've been Joe Brady. He is the front runner to win. It might've been Mike McDaniel. There was somebody out there that they're like, is the front runner to get the Bills job. And it's like, that happens, I'm done. Like, I'm finished with this. Like that So it wasn't Brian Dable. What Davis Webb intrigues me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of connection. What's that?
𝐸𝐶.
Well, the problem with 𝐸𝐶 is how soon can we talk to him? It's going to be the Seahawks are probably going to the Super Bowl. It's going to be weeks before we can even.
I think this is going to take weeks. I really do. I think they're going to interview like 10, 12 guys. I really do.
Which they should. Right?
You want to know something?
Mm.
Remember our old friend Leslie Frazier?
Oh yeah.
He's a defensive assistant for the Seattle Seahawks.
I do not want Leslie Frazier as my head coach.
I don't know the ties that he has to 𝐸𝐶, but he's not the DC. He's a defensive assistant.
Oh, you're saying as far as bringing in 𝐸𝐶 and then Leslie taking over Sean's defense.
Yes.
So as little. Well, I mean, they could potentially retain Bobby Babich, right? I mean, or find somebody else in that. What was his name? What Jim Johnson? Who's the Jim Johnson? Right, the coaching tree that Sean's from, the defensive coordinator. Yeah. I mean, they could find, I'm sure, somebody else that's a disciple of him that can run this defense. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. I think the Bills need to find a situation where they have like a Josh McDaniels type of situation, a guy who's going to be an offensive coordinator forever, right?
Right.
And I feel like that's Brian Daboll. I feel like maybe he wants to be a head coach. He's taken some interviews, but he also has here recently said that he's okay with going to Tennessee and being Robert Saleh's offensive coordinator, so he can work with Cam Ward.
Has he? Or is that jockeying that like, I'm going to take this job if Buffalo doesn't hire me, right?
I mean, it could be, but I think either way, if he's your head coach, he's in the building, right? So,
yes.
I mean, do you have a preference? Like, what's your overarching thought about? Because it's familiarity, right? He's going to be another guy that's going to go up there and he's going to pound his chest for Buffalo because he's from Hamburg and all this stuff.
West Seneca, I got that wrong. It was
West Seneca.
He went to St. Francis, so he graduated from St. Francis in Hamburg. So for me, like the best Josh Allen was Brian Daboll's Josh Allen, and I know that the league morphs and the league changes, but after Brian left, Josh Allen was not the same. And I know there's the whole, we want to keep him healthy. We don't want to get him hit so much. You can do that stuff and still run an offense that's friendly to what Josh Allen's skill set is. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be able to run 13 personnel concepts and that he shouldn't be able to do that stuff, but there's other things inside of that. I mean, get him a Puka Nacua. I'm not saying you can go find another Puka Nacua, but I'm saying find him some targets that work with the throwing style that he is. There's things that you can do. I feel like Brian Daboll, whether he's an offensive coordinator or the head coach, potentially makes sense. And then it's just the backside of the defense. To your point, how do you find somebody that can run Sean's scheme or morph Sean's scheme? So the difference between Leslie and Sean, and the reason that I don't want Leslie is when Leslie departed and took that year off, we immediately saw that defense become more aggressive. Now, it still didn't get us to where we wanted to go, but I think everybody wants more aggressive defense. Like that's been the problem. So the losses in the playoffs, the opposing team has scored 30 points way more times than not. So the offense has done its job and the defense has let up. And there's just an aspect of like, so you asked me a question. I gave you a long answer that I don't know if I completely answered. I don't know that I would have a problem with Brian Daboll.
Yeah.
But I don't want him like coming in on a chariot. Like the savior is here. Like, but I've seen ideas of Brian Daboll and then Davis Webb as the offensive coordinator. And then Davis Webb has never been an offensive coordinator. That doesn't scare me much because Mike McDaniel had never been an offensive coordinator. I don't think Sean McVay had ever been an offensive coordinator. There's another guy out there that GR was talking about today too, that's supposed to be a savant that's out there. That's a very similar to like a 30-year-old guy, but I think you got to find somebody that Josh vibes with, that Josh likes. I think there's some damage control that's going to have to be done here because those two, him and McDermott, were really close. And like for Pegula to even say, I didn't tell Josh, I just fired Sean and then called him.
Yeah, that was, to me, it's like, and I understand there's going to be all those people out there just saying he's just your franchise quarterback. He doesn't need to be in on everything, but he's the face of your organization.
He's the franchise.
He's the reason why you have $1 billion stadium. You can try to spin that however you want, but if Josh Allen was not who he is and has been as successful as he was, I don't think that stadium is being built right now or completed this season. That's
the house that Josh built. It's it's Lamar. Jim Harbaugh is not in Baltimore anymore. Jim or John? I always get them mixed up.
John
Harbaugh is not in Baltimore anymore because Lamar didn't want to play for John anymore. Like, I mean, Lamar was Josh was a shell of himself at times this season. Lamar was a complete shell of himself. Lamar almost mailed in the season, and when it ended, he was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, you got to find me somebody else. So, I mean, these guys are the franchise. I mean, for goodness sakes, they're getting $250 million contracts. I mean, at what point in time do they start writing them into ownership? Like, hey, whoever you are, like, your contract includes 10% of the organization. I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, Josh is the franchise.
All right, final thoughts here. What are you looking for here in the next couple of weeks? Because we're not going to hear from Josh. It's been reported that we won't hear from him until after a new coach has been hired. So what's your thoughts? We'll kind of break it in and we'll get out of here. Like, what's your final thoughts on what's your outlook here for the Bills for the next couple of weeks? What are you looking forward to kind of seeing what's going on with the Bills in the front office and stuff like that?
Well, first of all, Derek in the comment section says we couldn't run the ball under Daboll. That's concerning. We didn't have a good running back. Like
Motor Singletary and Zach Moss.
Right. We didn't have the running backs like James Cook. Josh Allen with James Cook can be in a spread. They can do it. They can run 10 personnel or whatever it is as far as that goes. But anyway, I just want them to do it right, Dave. Like, just do some things right. Like, how do you go from being the most buttoned up franchise in pro sports to whatever is going on right now since Sunday? Like, what is happening? Just go back to being an admired an admiral franchise. Go back to being
admiral.
Go back to being an admired franchise by everybody else that just does things right and does things the right way. They're gonna. I mean, I tweeted today, like, okay, Brandon, you feel like you're not the reason. Well, you're going to get a great opportunity to prove us all wrong and make us fall in love with you, because winning cures all ills. And if you don't get this right, we can't waste 3 more years of Josh Allen's career.
Nope.
Can't. I mean, he's going to be 30 when he returns. So, and I don't think Josh wants to waste 3 more years of his career either. So,
no, I don't think so. Well, Joe, it was awesome having you on.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
It was fun. We're going to try to, we were talking earlier, we're going to try to do this occasionally when schedules permit and things like that. I do appreciate all the insight, brother. I know we chatted up all the time online. I appreciate you coming on and spending some time. I hope that in the next couple of weeks, we have a new head coach. We have the coaching staff in place. We get to hear from Josh, and there's positive vibes. Because like you said, if Brandon Beane wants to get on all of our good graces, he's going to have to show it to us. He's just going to have to show it to us. So for Joe Miller from the Overreaction Sports Podcast, I'm Dave Myers. This has been First and 5. We will see you guys next time. Go Bills.
Go Bills.